So there you are, hour 10 of an 8-hour workday. You've spent all day putting out fires. Everyone has needed something, and you've gladly shown up for everyone because that's your job. You're a leader. You finally get 2 minutes to yourself. You sit down at your desk, and you start to go through your to-do list when you hear the all too familiar knock at your door. Sir, do you have a minute? What goes through your mind in that moment? Do you feel the tension? Are you a willing participant? Or do you just want to scream? We've all been there, but the question is, what version of yourself is going to show up? The truth is, everybody we know, ourselves, the people we've worked for, the people we lead, we've been there in that moment. We've been there where we feel like we have to be everything for everyone, but it takes a toll. And this week, we're going to look at what it means to operate under pressure, to actually perform the leadership stress test.
Welcome to imPERFECT, Better After Broken. You have Jeff Servello here, a leadership coach and an amazing human being. I'm Susan Hendrich. I'm host of Human Being with Dr. Susan, and today's episode is how to think about your leadership and the stress and strain you place on yourself.
I'm really excited about the fact that we are talking about the things that most people don't share in public when they're talking about leadership. Everyone wants to talk about, oh, I helped this person, I did this thing. And we don't talk about the human tax and the toll leadership is inconvenient. And it's okay to be inconvenienced. But I think if you ignore the fact that it can be inconvenient and that it comes at a cost, I think you are neglecting a reality of the situation and setting yourself up for failure. So I'm excited to share that with people and talk about that.
Me too. And I love the intentionality that you bring. When you're present, you are fully present. And when you are on the back nine, nobody can find you anywhere because that is your time. In knowing where to be and be where your feet are, Jeff, that's one of the things I look up to you most about.
Appreciate that. Thank you.
Sense of pressure to be everything for everyone. There's something intoxicating about being needed.
How hard is it for each of us to admit that not everyone's going to get the best version of us at all times? And do we give ourselves any grace? Do we ever talk about that moment where I'm smiling on the outside, but I'm screaming on the inside because I just want to get my work list done so that I can go home to my family, but people want more and more and more?
A juxtaposition of how you want to present and you want to be there for people. You don't want to let anybody down, but it creates an impossible balanced scale where if you're over giving here and you're 24/7 on call, something's got to give. And so either at home, you're able to give less, or you give all you can at home, and then there's nothing left for yourself. Either way, you're not winning.
I agree that we compound this lose-lose proposition when we refer to work-life balance instead of work-life mix. There are only so many pieces of pizza in the pie, and how many are being served at work, how many are being served at home. And I think as well, when we talk concepts of servant leadership, nobody says, I want to be a tyrant leader. We want to be a servant leader. We want to be an inspirational leader. Being a servant leader and an inspirational leader probably dismisses the fact that there is this tension between the different roles we have in our life. And by acknowledging that tension, we somehow are less than. And if we ignore it, we somehow are wearing two hats or have an inner monster within us that has to be caged and hidden.
It's a win-lose or a lose-win. Because like you said, the finite nature of time, we can change what we do inside of the box of time that we have. But that win, lose, lose, win, I think there's got to be a better way.
So Susan, how do you approach this without being performative? Or is this all just a gigantic act where we're players in a movie or a play and we're on a stage, or where does authenticity come in?
Well, performative energy is, number one, exhausting. And number two, it's misaligned with your true self. So even if it works in the short run, the you that people are seeing or loving or appreciating is not really a sustainable you. So it just sets up more of a chasm between self and world. I'm keen on some research from a Stanford psychologist. Her name is Kelly McGonigal, and she studied the impact of stress on resilience. She found that when stress is perceived as meaningful stress, the psychological response can actually increase your resilience and connection to others if it's meaningful. When it's not meaningful, that stress has a potentiating, compounding effect on your sense of helplessness, your propensity for dis-ease or disease. Meaningful stress means if I'm if I'm truly the only person that can do this thing at work, that feels great in the moment. And I feel called to action. I've got my superhero cape on and I come in and I help and rescue in the situation. But over time, if you remain the only person that can do something, that sets up a dependency on you, first of all. And second of all, you're exhausted all the time, which is why multipliers is such a powerful concept. Multiplier leaders help others around them to get better. It's not enough to just be a servant leader. Servant leadership, believe it or not, is more about you in some ways than about the person that you're trying to lead. Add to servant leadership a multiplier effect, then it's worth it. Then it's meaningful, as McGonigal says, in that you're investing in this person being able to fish on their own instead of showing up with your cape and handing out fish to everyone.
The word resentment came into mind for me because the idea of being a multiplier and a servant leader, man, it sounds good. What a great bumper sticker. Oh, that's me. I'm that person. But are you really that person? Or are you the person who really wants to get home for Little League and whose spouse is mad at him because you've missed dinner again, or you said you were going to do the thing and now you can't, and then the resentment builds because I'm the only one who can do it. Nobody does it as well as I can. My employee can do it okay, but it's got to be perfect, so I better be the one to do it.
Learning how to let go and let others fumble or struggle or do good enough work, but then over time, if you empower others enough, they will rise to the challenge. I'll never forget this moment. I was in graduate school and Modesto Hevia, my advisor, he was amazing. And he drew on the board the very first day of class. He drew Freud, Sigmund Freud, and his daughter Anna, and then someone she supervised and someone they supervised, and then his name. So he said, I'm a direct psychological descendant of Sigmund Freud. And he's really proud of that because his mentor, and he said, so if any of you stick with me, you'll get to put Freud in your pedagogy. And I'm getting goosebumps saying this story right now. And I remember being so excited at the time that this Harvard thought leader who is willing to take on a student. So I signed up. I was like, I'm all in. And he became my mentor. And one day I came into his office and I was really upset because there was an award and I was nominated for this award. And I was like, you should be getting this award. You're the one that opened up, potential and capability and whatever. And he said to me, and I couldn't believe it at the time because it just didn't compute. He said, nothing would be more of a sign of my success than if you go further in life than I was able to.
Wow.
I mean, talk about, now that's beyond servant leader. That is a selfless leader. He wasn't just saying, I'm the only one that can do it. He was saying, I need you to be the one that can do it and go forward. And I have never looked at leadership the same. And I truly feel when someone I'm accountable to, supporting as their manager, when they succeed beyond me, it's the greatest honor possible, because that means I've created the next generation under the little pedagogy of Freud's. There are very few things that only you can do in this life. And what better gift to the world if you can teach others to fish and thereby opening up time for you to spend in your own life.
And hats off to your professor for creating that environment. But how rare is that? So much of the leadership training and so many people who get promoted, they get promoted because into leadership positions because of their ability to do. And then we expect people to facilitate and create opportunities to go from being selfish, me, look at what I can do, look what I can produce, to look what I can create. And it's such a dynamic shift that I feel, in my experience, both making that journey and now coaching people in that journey, it's a real hard paradigm shift for a lot of people to like, oh, but this is my brand. That was your brand. What is your brand now? Is it about you? Does your team lift you up and therefore I'm successful because look, all these people, I'm standing on their shoulders? Or is their success giving you the opportunity to go, see, look at my team?
Yeah, I agree. It's very rare. And you remind me of two resources that were instrumental in my learning about this concept. One of them is a book I have on my shelf right there. It's called The First 90 Days by Michael Watkins.
Great book.
He talks about the transition you have to make from individual contributor to a leader, and that it is such a different reward system. Like you said, when you're an individual contributor, you get your goodies or you get your sense of worth and well-being from what you do. When you become a leader, you need to transition away from focusing on the things that you do that gain praise or achievement, and now your job is to unlock that achievement in others. So there's a grieving process of you're not the one. So back to Mohevia, when I went and I said, oh, this award, that award was a really big deal to me at that moment because I'd never won a professional award before. He had 100 of them on his shelf. He was creating that opportunity. So he had let go of the need to win that award, and he got more joy, more dopamine, if you will, out of enabling that in someone reporting to him. So First 90 Days is a great book, and it's all about how to transition from wherever you are to where you're trying to go. The second resource, it's called What Got You Here Won't Get You There. And it's about letting go of that mindset. So all of this, Jeff, that we're talking about relates to how much we take on, and where resentment is actually a very healthy signal that your body gives you that says too much. What do you do with that when you experience that you're pouring too much into something? How do you scale that for balance?
My initial reaction is to push harder. From years and years of being a doer, if I just work a little harder, if I just press a little more, if I yell a little louder, do more, if I give, I'll find a way. That was probably my approach up until about 7-8 years ago. And now I would say my approach is pause, reflect. That if you gave me an hour to chop down a tree, I'd spend 50 some odd minutes sharpening my axe. What's the proper way to do this instead of brute force? The ability to step back and look at a problem. To build on a football example, we're going to move off of Jalen Hurts this week and talk about Jackson Dart. When Jackson Dart comes into the game and makes an incredible play, he obviously has seen it from his view. But when they sit down on the bench and the coach comes over with the computer and they can now see the top-down view and kind of zoom up and look down and provide the bird's eye view, I think that is a skill for leaders to cultivate in themselves as they are making this transition to facilitation. I know how to play the game, right? Jackson Dart is reading in the moment, but when he can rewind, reassess from a different perspective, he can now see the problem more full. We get caught up in the grind. There's momentum that gets built.
I appreciate Jackson Dart as well. Matter of fact, one of the things I like about him most is how much accountability he takes for turnovers. And he's had a lot of opportunity to do that. I'm just
easy.
That was so uncalled for and unnecessary, but I had to. But you're right. I love his focus on accountability and team success versus his own success. So he has made that transition the first 90 days. What got you here won't get you there. He's made that transition to see making others successful and having your own confidence to stand in a moment where other people are getting opportunity, kudos, etc. Really, in the end, is a rising tide, not only for them, but it also lifts you up as well. High stakes performers. The movie The Hurt Locker, there where only one person can do it. Nobody else can handle this. Like that is not only an intoxicating feeling to be special and important, but it's also a self-sustaining loop of she's the only one that can handle this, or call him, he can fix it and make it better. The neurotransmitter dopamine gets released. It spikes not just from pleasure, but when we anticipate impact. When we know that what we're going to do, that they call it the hero trigger. When your hero trigger gets activated, it's the same circuitry as addictive behaviors. It's really hard to break. We don't just respond to chaos, we start seeking it.
I think the hero trigger is a great point to bring up here, right? Leaders think that, hey, I have to do this. That's how I'm going to lead. Not recognizing that their ego, their pride, their mistimed insertion of themselves into the process may actually be causing more harm than good.
You remember the book, The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People?
I do.
Stephen Covey talks about first things first. And he puts up this Eisenhower, foursquare. And he says, low urgency, high urgency, low importance, high importance. So there's 4 quadrants. So you can have something that's high urgency, high importance. You're going to be drawn immediately to focus on that. Something that's high importance, low urgency, like let's say finishing writing your book, or taking a really well thought out vacation with someone you love. Low urgency, high importance. The low urgency, high importance tasks often get supplanted by high urgency, either high urgency important or high urgency unimportant. High urgency unimportant would be, I got 2 tickets to the game. I've got to go. I can't miss this. Well, is it important for you to be there and miss your kids' baseball game? Spend as much time as you possibly can in the high importance, low urgency space, which is the opposite of the adrenaline and the dopamine that comes from hero trigger.
Yeah.
Urgency isn't importance.
I love that matrix. I've tried so many times to implement that matrix and have failed miserably, because everything always seems to be high importance, high urgency. When you have externalities, things that you map out, right? And map it out. I'm like, all right, I'm good, right? Like I'm gonna not do that. I'm gonna delegate this. And then you get a helmet fire, or you get somebody who just calls with a crisis, and that crises never happen at 9 o'clock on a Monday morning, right? Always 3 o'clock on a Friday afternoon. I had a friend who used to call him the fat kitten, the Friday afternoon tasker, gets you dropped in your lap like a kitten. Boom. Like, what are you going to do? You can't just leave the kitten, right? And it's Friday afternoon. And it's, it's like, I need it by 5. Knowing darn well whoever called you isn't sticking around to read whatever it is you are jumping through your teeth to get done. That then becomes a real problem, right? When everything's a priority, nothing's a priority. Wonderful matrix. I love that Eisenhower used it. Maybe there's a reason he was a 5-star general and I retired as a commander. I don't know. But externalities of the world outside your office is driving everything to that top left corner. Like, it's almost impossible then to balance that out.
Love to teach the concept of focus on high importance, low urgency, but I'm definitely not a role model of doing that. And it becomes a habit. Culture is a feeling. And if you have the Sunday night scaries and you dread going into work the next day, you need to look at what you're doing or who you're doing it with or how you're doing it. If you have all three of those in trouble, we need to have a different conversation. But often it's how you're doing what you're doing that influences your sense of satisfaction. And if you are unable to have discernment between what is truly urgent and where you want to spend most of your time, I know for me, that's why I set up such a self-sabotaging state of mind. I get emotionally blunted or I get resentful, and I automatically going from back to back and not even really, I'm just like, okay, where do I need to be next? And then on, and that performative energy that you talked about earlier, I just kind of show up and then I turn on the juice in that moment because I can fake it till I make it. And I get enough dopamine from people saying, wow, that's a great widget, that I think I'm doing a good job. But at the end of the day, I come home and I collapse and I wonder why I'm not only exhausted, but I'm mad.
I call that playing whack-a-mole.
Yes.
Just from thing to thing, right? You're playing whack-a-mole. You're riding peaks. You're up, I'm down, I'm up, I'm down. Not sustainable. And it's so draining and a miserable way to live. I think it takes us back to the scene that we created at the beginning of the show. You've been responding to everybody else's crises all day. Then when you finally get a chance to do something yourself, leadership is inconvenient. Being a leader to the level to which you described your professor being is inconvenient. He sacrificed self for your growth. He took less so you could have more. Simon Sinek talks about that in the book, Leaders Eat Last. Hey, I'm going to do for my people so that they know I care for them, and I'm going to build them up, and as a result, they'll lift everybody else up. I think that comes with a level of awareness that, again, often goes uncommunicated, that if you're going to do that, it comes at a cost. You maybe have to plan more. You have to plan smarter. You have to spend 55 minutes sharpening your axe. You can't just go out and start hacking away at the tree. I mean, you could, but maybe that's not the best use of your time.
You just gave me an insight. On the surface, we say that great leadership is about focusing on the other. And I will always aspire to put others first. What that theory misses for me, and you just opened this up for me for the first time, is that we don't teach people how to still have your own needs and solve for them. So we create almost a performative expectation. You should be thinking about others. You should, what got you here won't get you there. Help them succeed. But we don't teach people how to regulate at the end of the day. That's the hot topic right now in all of psychology and in a lot of leadership. Regulation. Think about regulation. Stephen Porges and the concept of polyvagal theory. It's all about your nervous system and how you stay regulated or you get activated. And the goal is to stay regulated as much of the time as you possibly can. But a lot of our messages, certainly from Madison Avenue, but even from the concept of servant leadership, are about activating, being there for others. Don't worry so much about being in charge, focus on taking care of those who are in your charge. Awesome, all for it. What we forgot to do was teach how to also include yourself in that equation. That's what today is about for me.
I had a conversation about something about this today where I told someone, I think the open door policy is the dumbest thing ever offered to leaders. Here's why I think that it's just an absolute asinine theory. How long does it take the average person to get back on track once they've been interrupted?
Minutes, right?
Yep, 6 to 15 minutes, depending upon what study you read. So that means every time my door is open, and I want it to be open because I want people to feel like they can come to me. Every time they come in and knock on my door, I'm interrupted, regardless of the reason. Big reason, small reason, happy reason, sad reason, I'm interrupted. Do you know anybody who can be interrupted and not ultimately end up annoyed? We've created this standard where it's like your door needs to be open so that people know you care. I don't know. How about we set boundaries and people will know I care? When I'm available, my door will be open. Then please come on in, have a cup of coffee, tell me about anything. But when my door is shut, please respect my ability and my need to get things done either on your behalf or on the behalf of others, unless the following circumstances are happening. And I found this out the hard way. I had an open door theory because I thought it's good. Everybody, all the great people, open door, open door. And I couldn't get anything done. And I was getting agitated. One day, somebody knocked on my door and I was like, what? Their face sank. I felt like a chucklehead. And I was like, I'm not doing this anymore. So I created an hour on the calendar where I was like, not to be disturbed. Unless certain conditions were met, do not disturb me. And if you're smart, if I'm not bothering you, that's probably a really good time that you might not be disturbed by me. You're not answering my requests for things. And so I set that time so that I could get things done, minimize my resentment, maximize my output, or at least create some space for output at a part of the day where was better for myself. Funny, you know what led to this realization for me other than me snapping at somebody? Have you ever seen those Snickers commercials where they're like, it's like the two guys at the party and one of the guys is like, they're talking to the girls and one of the dudes is Joe Pesci and he's like going nuts on the person. And they're like, Steve, you're not yourself. Here, have a Snickers. And he's like, oh man, thanks. That's what it was. I needed an hour to think. I needed an hour to answer the things that were living in that upper left corner so that I could maybe get to the upper right corner where, you know, things are important but not urgent and really do some thought. But because I had married myself to this ridiculous idea I read in a book somewhere, I was judging myself like, why am I so angry? Why am I so frustrated? I just needed to shut my door a little bit. It could be open when it was open, but when it was shut, it needed to be shut. I needed a boundary.
I learned that about you very early upon meeting you. You said, look, I like to golf. Be aware. And I really love that because what you were also telling me by sharing that you create boundaries around your professional pursuits, that when you are in, you are all in. So it reminds me of this sign that I once saw at a bank. You know, you wait in the little area to be able to go and talk to a banker, and they had a sign and it said, we apologize for the wait. We are giving our best possible energy to the customer before you now so that their needs are met. And as soon as it's your turn, you will get that same best energy. I will wait for them because by the time I'm there, some other chump is going to be sitting in the chair watching me have my turn. Your story about boundaries, I could tell you could still see that guy's face when when you answered the door and you realized that you were not either all in on your break or all in on tending to those in your charge. You needed to make a more specific boundary between the two.
Yeah, and your bank example is really important, right? Because as a leader or a person filling a position of authority within an organization, interacting with your people seems natural and maybe the best part of your day. But for people more junior in the organization, interacting with more senior people is a really big deal. I had an admiral one time stop me and he remembered me and he talked to me about, hey, how's it going? I came home, I was thrilled. He remembered me. And I think we take that for granted sometimes. I did personnel for the Navy for a couple years, and the person who had the desk before me left this sign above the desk that said, to you, it's another phone call. It may be another email. But to the person who is writing or calling, that's the single most important phone call of the day, because what they are talking to you about determines the path they or their family are taking. That to me really created the need for a boundary where I would tell people, I got your email. I see you. I need time to give you a really good answer. I'll get back to you quickly, so that they're not waiting and feeling like, oh my God, they're not answering me, or the email equivalent of being left on read and wondering what's happening, right? Giving them that boundary. I got it. Thank you. Understand the concern. Please let me get you the best information I could get you. And giving people that mutual respect. But it also gave me time to, I got an entire notebook full of stuff I have to do too. Of the 200 people who I'm tracking, you're number 153. And very, very important, but it's just you're the 153rd email today. Equally important, but there's got to be a process to manage the queue and being able to set that boundary of, I see you, I got you, I'll get back to you, as opposed to, I'll get around to it. Managing those expectations. I think that that's something that's really important. And I don't think we talk enough about that as leaders.
Well, I love to be Johnny on the spot, super fast with things. And I know for a fact that someone would rather me say, thanks, got it, I'll get back to you, and come back with something meaningful and, a true investment than just speed to response for the sake of whack-a-mole and getting this person off of my list. So I respect that in you. I have a circumstance coming up where I'm going to try that. At the very beginning of our discussion today, when you said, are people going to get the best of you? I had a coach say to me once, I was talking about overload and overpromising and, under-delivering. I felt like I was letting people down. And she said, Susan, you have to decide. Do you want to allow your circumstances to get the best of you and everyone else to get the rest of you? Or do you want to invest the time in systems and ways of working and communicating expectations that set it up so that the best of you can be preserved and invested in the places and people where it truly matters to you? Overnight shifter. And the first person I thought of when she said that was my husband. Tom, he is so good at being in the moment when he's talking with you. I feel like I'm the only person in the world. He makes me feel very seen and special. I am so distracted half the time that I would bring the phone to the table. I would be, I'd be like, oh, it's no big deal. It's just right there. And he boldly said, hey, let's make some specific time just for us. It wasn't, in anger or mean in any way. It was just, hey, I really would like the best, let's give each other the best of our time. So those two things that you've taught today, one is boundaries, focus time, be where your feet are. Instead of being upset while you're at work that you can't take care of things at home, and then distracted while you're at home because you still need to take care of things at work, and therefore you're never anywhere fully. Be where your feet are, less available all the time, and more quality focused in the time that you do share. And not only will others feel appreciated, seen, and valued, but you won't be exhausted and resentful all the time.
Yeah, that's powerful. And what a gift that presence is that Tom gives you. Going back to the Snickers commercial for a second. In the book, The Attributes, author Rich Davini talks about peak performance versus optimal performance. And it reminds me of my Whoop, right, where it tracks my sleep and my recovery. And based on my recovery, it'll say, this is what your strain for the day, the recommended zone should be. We think about peak performance. I'm capable of this high number, whatever the number is, right? I can run a 5-minute mile. I can bench press 500 pounds. I don't know. That's a weird number, right? But I can do these things. We expect the star running back to run for 100 yards every game and a touchdown at least every game. Peak performance as opposed to optimal performance. What else is going on in my life? Am I showing up to work as a 10 out of 10? Or am I showing up to work as a 6 out of 10? And when we show up to work as a 6 out of 10, what boundaries are we creating for ourselves? Are we telling anybody, hey, kids were up late last night, sick, I didn't get any sleep, I need some help. I will give you 100% of my 6 out of 10, but I can't give you 8 out of 10 today. I don't have it. I got this. Optimal performance is I will give you everything I have, but that is different than my peak performance, which most people come to expect from people all the time. Oh, he can run a 5-minute mile. He's going to clock him out, no problem.
Attitude, being able to sprint in a moment, that peak that you can achieve in that moment, that does not necessarily talk about endurance or performance over time. And repetition or sustainability beats, unless you're lifting a car off of somebody, which hopefully doesn't happen more than once in a lifetime. It's typically the sustained consistency over time that makes the difference. Peak performance. I remember a study, Yerkes-Dodson law. The Yerkes-Dodson law, imagine a bell curve that's really tall. Performance improves with excitement about the task that you have at hand or a little bit of positive pressure. Performance increases the more you have that stimulation. But at a point where it's too much, it starts to level off, and that stress is no longer useful and encouraging and getting you hyped up. It's now leading to worse performance. Your cognitive flexibility drops, your creativity narrows, your patience evaporates. So we each need to know, speaking of optimal performance, Rich DeBenny, love that guy. We each need to know what our optimal performance level is. And not everybody needs to have the same. Buddha says the root of all suffering lies in comparison. Oh, Jeff is able to, see 10 clients a day. And he also is able to do a keynote speech over here. Well, that's awesome for Jeff. And that doesn't mean that that you're terrible because you can only say do 8 clients in a day. You might have something else going on, to your point about being a 6 out of 10, where it's not possible this week or maybe ever. Get to know your own optimal zone and maximize that rather than comparing yourself and flailing to try to keep up with someone else. And A, you die from exhaustion, or B, you spend your whole life in performative energy that doesn't bring any real sense of satisfaction to your life.
What a great point. How then, as a manager or as a leader, and I think those two things are very different. A manager is a person who supervises folks, and a leader is somebody who their people recognize them and seek their guidance out. How do you encourage people to seek their own optimal performance? And how do you resist the urge to just shoehorn people into positions? I have 8 things that need to be done. I have 7 people. You're all going to do it, as opposed to matching talent to task.
A manager is someone you do things with or for because you have to. A leader is someone you do things with or for because you are inspired to, you want to. But let's start with the manager perspective. How do you parse out the work in a way that meets people where they are? Number one, as a manager, need to decide that you believe everybody has a zone where they thrive, and that not everybody has to be in the same energy at the same time with the same skills. Not everybody's going to be in the same place, but if you can study each person and matching the task to their best joy and their best skill, you're going to get so much more satisfaction, loyalty, sense of purpose, and a better product in the long run. So that's the dividing up the tasks from a manager point of view. From a leader point of view, ask people, what do you enjoy doing? What lights you up? Liz Wiseman in the book Multipliers talks about Melu tasks and Mego tasks, MELU, MEGO. Melu tasks are things that make my eyes light up. I get so excited being a keynote speaker. I get super jazzed about being a consultant in a crisis situation for this team. That which makes you excited might exhaust somebody else, whereas they love Excel spreadsheets and really crunching in on the numbers and data visualization. Put a fork in my eye, right? That's something that makes your eyes glaze over. Find what makes people joyful and have their sense of meaning and purpose, and match up the tasks to not only what they're good at, but what really makes them feel valued and joyful. And you got yourself a team.
Wow. Talk about servant leadership, fueling people, knowing them well enough to be able to individually meet them where they are and in a way that gets the best out of them instead of just work out of them.
Be there for your team without compromising your own sense of integrated balance, and also how to support others we got to keep stress at bay, man. The world is complicated enough.
We do a ton of batteries of like DISC and 360s and all these things to help people understand who they are. Being a good leader starts with an awareness of who you are, but that includes both your strengths and your weaknesses. And so I would ask people to do kind of almost an inverse assessment. Who are you at your worst? When are you Joe Pesci in that Snickers commercial? Sarcasm comes out, I get snippy. What are those things that come out of you when you're not at your best that you think are defense mechanisms, but may actually become malignant forms of leadership that could hurt what you're trying to build with your team? Build in buffers, either to notice in yourself, recognize, hey, if I'm going to be late, I probably need a buffer. I need like, hey, I need 5 minutes. Set those boundaries of, okay, I know I'm snappy. I need 5 minutes. Or, hey, Susan, when you notice that this is happening, can you give me like a little, right? Almost like you're the baseball coach calling out the signals from the bullpen, right? Like, so I know of, or, like, right? Something that lets have a trusted agent who can help you, right? You spend so much time caring for your people. Create conditions to care for yourself and maybe to let the team take care of you too. Because I think if you're doing a really good job of leadership, if you say to your team, hey guys, best I have is a 6 today, I would hazard a guess that your team will step up for you. So create those healthy boundaries, but create those boundaries from a place of awareness. So I think that would be my takeaway. Who are you at your worst? How do you create boundaries to protect yourself and your team? And then how do you also communicate in a way that sets the stage for, I'll pick you up, maybe you can pick me up when we're not at our best. How about you?
Awesome. You are a humanistic leader.
Thank you.
I'm really aware of that when I hear these recommendations, and I love the Snickers. When you're not at your best, they call them stress behaviors. What kind of seeps out of your consciousness when you're not paying attention? Having that awareness, maybe even asking those around you. Matter of fact, I might ask Tom tonight, what are my stress behaviors? And I'm quite sure that he will have a list to offer to support me in working through that. But I like the idea of self-awareness and of having the generosity of spirit to let people know that you're not at your 100% self. Dig those. And then the other point about boundaries are, what do they say? Good fences make good neighbors, right? Yeah. It's the same thing when it comes to sharing space in this world. Having a healthy sense of when I'm in the world, when I'm going to be in the mix with others, and when I need to ramp down and either be by myself to refuel or with my team. Speaking of refueling, I found this incredible song that I did not, you may know about this, but apparently there is a specific song that was shown in research to reduce stress and anxiety, physiological reduction in stress and anxiety.
I've heard this, but I can't remember it. Okay.
It's called Weightless by Marconi Union. Can we put that in this week's playlist?
Yeah.
Okay, sweet. So the song is Weightless by Marconi Union, and in clinical testing, it showed to significantly reduce anxiety markers and heart rate variability. Remember, regulation is about staying in that window where you're not too down and depressed or turned off, but you're not too hyped up and activated. So you can use this song in the first 10 minutes of your workday, let's say, before you open email. Set yourself a boundary behavior, a ritual of boundary. For example, I have a jar sitting in my garage. It's an empty jar. And I've never put anything in it. I've never taken anything out of it. But every time I come home, I put my woes and worries from the workday into that jar. And every time I leave the house, I put any woes and worries that I have from home, so that everything that I'm able to be fully present in the space that I need to be. Find your way of recognizing stress behaviors, modulating those stress behaviors by having some sort of an intervention that you do with yourself, and then making sure that there's space for others and allowing them to take care of you. I just love that. I love when my teammates say, hey, Susan, I see you're struggling. What can we do? I don't ever want to make it about me, but knowing that I get to be a human makes me want to run through a brick wall for my own team.
I love it. When you brought up the jar, I just want to share something with you. My family gave me a couple of years ago a jar of F's.
How many F's are in that jar?
I don't know how many are in there, but I know how many have been taken out. Exactly 0, which is my reminder to pick and choose very carefully the things that I am going to get worked up about, because I used to expend energy without any real, like it was just energy, right? And I would run dry, right? No sort of activated, right? No sort of recognition of my own reserves, or is just give. And so this was their reminder to me a couple Christmases ago. So that made me, your jar used slightly differently, much more elegantly than mine. But, for both sides of the spectrum, you can have a jar to put your cares in, or a jar to remind you to safeguard the things you care about. So I
Keep
just
your
thought that
F's
was
in
really
a jar.
cool.
That is
Yep.
absolutely fantastic. You just conjured a memory for me of the 1970s. There was a cartoon that I loved. It was called The Wonder Twins, Zan and Jaina. And they were twins, and they would activate some superpower.
Oh, yeah.
Sometimes it was form of an ice bridge, form of a bed of nails, whatever they needed in the moment to activate. But the point is, they were intentional about where they put their F's. When they activated, they decided what they wanted to cause, and they used their energy in that way. So let us direct our Wonder Twin powers, activate energy in the right direction, and keep your F's for when you really need them.
I love it.
Awesome. So in this wrap up, don't forget to check out the playlist of the week. Jeff doesn't play when it comes to coming up with good songs. This week, we are focusing on calming music to help you regulate. And we're going to include that wonderful Zen song by Marconi, Weightless.
And
Jeff?
I'm going to add one other song to the playlist. I'm going to give a teaser. This is my go-to song when I am needing to calm down. Your Love by The Outfield. I like to tease people. I don't know why. Something about that song, something about Josie being on a vacation far away, and the guitar riff, I'm here for it. Calms me down, makes me happy, resets me.
That's a good reset song. Every time I hear that song from now on, I'm going to think of you being just right in the zone, regulated. That's fantastic. Awesome. Okay, so a call to action. Find your stress behaviors, name them, and then insert something to help regulate when you need it, whether it's music, whether it's boundaries, whether it's talking with someone, or whether it is journaling. Find your way to modulate and regulate so that you can have more presence in the places you travel as a leader. Jeff, we're wrapping up.
Yeah, we are. And this was a great show. I'm glad we were able to talk about this. And I want to remind the listener, leadership is inconvenient, but that's okay. You're there in that role because you have something to offer. And there are worse things than being inconvenienced, but just remember, lean into that. Set healthy boundaries. And remember, the best things in life are the things that we put back together, the experiences we learned from, because after all, life's imperfect. It's better after broken.
Better after broken. This was really fun conversation. You've got me jazzed up to go live a cleaner zone between work and play and when frustration comes. So this is Imperfect, Better After Broken, the show where we celebrate the cracks, the scars, and the stories that make us stronger. I'm Susan Hendrich.
I'm Jeff Servello.
And we will see you next week, Sunday, and every Sunday at 6 p.m. Eastern, 5 p.m. Central, right here on Sandcastle Radio, America's hottest online variety and music station.
Right.
Peace.
Trying to be like, I feel like Rick Bobby. I don't know what to do with my hands. Right? Like that's the outtake for this week.
Just happened.
Yeah.
Because I'm a mess when sometimes. Ready to shake and bake, baby. Shall we?
Shake and bake. Nah.
Oh, my